In a bustling city in the heart of Nigeria, where a girl's value is measured by the straightness of her hair and the latest model of her iPhone, three friends made a pact that would transform their lives forever. But not in the way they imagined. This is not a folktale passed down from our grandmothers. No. This is a modern fable, happening right now, in lecture halls and hostels, in the back seats of Range Rovers and the dim corners of five-star hotels. This is the story of Kristin, Chioma, and Linda, three ordinary girls who wanted an extraordinary Christmas. And like our ancestors who warned us about the tortoise's greed, and the consequences of wanting what doesn't belong to us, this story carries a lesson written in tears, regret, and the bitter taste of shattered dreams. Welcome to Detty December. The harmattan wind swept through the university campus, carrying with it the scent of roasted plantain from the vendors at the main gate and the distant sound of a generator coughing to life. Room 24, Moremi Hall, a cramped space that had seen better days, probably in the 1980s when the university still had enough funding to maintain its hostels. Kristin sat on her foam mattress. The springs of the bed frame had given up long ago, counting the crisp naira notes her mother had sent through a POS agent in their hometown. Her fingers moved mechanically, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. The pile looked substantial until you remembered it had to last you for months, cover textbooks for the new semester, feed her for weeks, and somehow stretch to include the data subscription that had become as essential as oxygen in university life. 25,000 naira. 25,000 naira to survive in this campus, where a decent meal cost 1,500 naira, where lecturers demanded you buy textbooks that cost more than a meal each, where your roommates judged you by the brand of provisions you unpacked from your provisions bag at the beginning of each semester. How much did your people send? Chioma's voice cut through Kristin's mental calculations. She was perched on the only chair in the room, braiding her natural hair into cornrows using the cracked mirror balanced on their shared reading table. Kristin hesitated. There was a delicate economy of truth among broke students. Tell the truth and risk being asked for loans you couldn't afford to give. Lie too much and risk being exposed when your Gary finished by mid-semester and you had to start borrowing. Enough to manage, Kristin replied, the universal code for I'm broke but pretending I'm not. Linda laughed from her corner of the room, where she was washing her underwear in a small bucket. We're all managing, ABI? My father sent 15,000 and made it sound like he was sending me millions. I heard my mother in the background saying I should be grateful, that when she was in school, they survived on 5,000 naira per semester. She wrung out a pair of faded panties with more force than necessary. As if they don't know that 5,000 naira in 1995 and 5,000 naira now are not the same thing. Chioma put down her comb. My mother didn't even send money. She sent provisions. Gary, beans, palm oil, dried fish that smells like something that died twice. She gestured to the Ghana must-go bag in the corner, stuffed with items that screamed village supply. She thinks because she sent food, she's done her duty. As if I can pay for photocopies with dried fish. As if I can buy data with Gary. The three girls sat in silence for a moment, each trapped in the familiar cage of their financial limitations. This wasn't new. This was their reality, had been their reality since they started university 2 years ago. They were the children of the middle, not poor enough to qualify for scholarships, not rich enough to be comfortable. Their parents were civil servants, small business owners, teachers, people who worked hard, sacrificed constantly, and still somehow never had enough. But lately, that cage had started to feel smaller. Tighter and suffocating. Did you see Treasure's Snapchat story yesterday? Linda asked, breaking the silence with the question that had been hovering unspoken between them. Kristin groaned. Which one? The one where she was getting her nails done at that salon, or the one where she was showing off her new MacBook? Both, Chioma said flatly. And the one this morning where she's talking about flying to Abuja for someone's birthday party. Flying, oh. Not taking a bus. Not even taking a train. Flying. Treasure Okeke. Every university had a treasure. The girl who started the semester with modest means and ended it dripping in luxury. The girl whose transformation from ordinary to extraordinary happened so seamlessly that you almost didn't notice, until suddenly you couldn't stop noticing. 6 months ago, Treasure had been like them, counting coins, wearing the same 3 outfits in rotation, her natural hair packed in a simple bun. Then something happened. New phone, iPhone 14 Pro Max. New laptop. New wigs. Bone straight, reaching down her back like a waterfall of silk. New clothes, new shoes, new attitude. She stopped eating at the student cafeteria and started posting pictures from restaurants where a single meal cost more than their monthly budget. And she wasn't alone. The campus was full of them now. Girls who arrived with ordinary means and now were living like celebrities. The transformation always followed the same pattern, a new phone first, then the bone-straight hair, then the luxury items that accumulated like trophies of a game they were winning while others didn't even know they were playing. You know what the most annoying part is? Kristin said, finally voicing what they all felt. She acts like we're stupid. Like we don't know what she's doing. Like we don't know where the money is coming from. Runs, Linda said simply, using the campus slang for girls who dated older, wealthy men for money. She's doing runs. They all are. Chioma twisted another section of her hair, her fingers working with practiced efficiency. Can we really judge them, though? Look at us. We're here struggling with 20,000 naira while they're flying to Abuja. We're washing our clothes by hand while they're taking their laundry to that laundryman to wash for them. We're rationing data while they have unlimited subscriptions. She paused, meeting their eyes in the mirror. Who's really winning? The question hung in the air like smoke, poisonous and invasive. Kristin wanted to argue, wanted to defend their dignity, their integrity. But the words died in her throat because Chioma was right. What was dignity worth when you were hungry? What was integrity worth when you couldn't afford the things that made you feel human in a world that judged your humanity by your possessions? My younger brother keeps sending me messages, Kristin said quietly. He's in SS2 now. He keeps talking about how his sister is in university, how I'm going to come back home for Christmas and everyone will see how successful I am. He's been telling his friends that I'm going to buy him the new FIFA game for Christmas. She laughed bitterly. I can't even afford transport home, talk less of buying video games. Linda abandoned her laundry, sitting on the floor with her back against the wall. My parents are planning a big Christmas party this year. First time in 5 years because they finally finished building the new house. They don't know that I'm the most broke person in my entire department. They don't know that I've been lying about having a part-time job because I'm too ashamed to tell them I need more money. So what do we do? Chioma asked, and there was something dangerous in her voice, something that hadn't been there before. Do we just accept that this is our life? That we're going to spend 4 years in university being the poor girls while others are living their best lives? That Christmas is going to come and we're going to go home empty-handed, wearing our old clothes, our natural hair looking rough, while everyone else shows up glowing? December is coming, Linda said, and the words carried weight. December is not just a month, it is a season, a phenomenon, a lifestyle. Detty December, they called it, the period when the city transformed into a playground for the wealthy, when parties happened every night, when social media became a competition of who could look most expensive, most glamorous, most successful. December is when you proved you had made it. December is when you showed your village people, your secondary school mates, your relatives who had doubted you, that you were winning at life. December is everything. And they had nothing. Bella invited me, Chioma announced 3 days later, waving her phone like it was a golden ticket. There's a birthday party tonight at that new club. She said we should come. Bella Nwosu was a final year student who had become something of a legend on campus. She drove a Mercedes-Benz that everyone knew she hadn't bought herself. Her Instagram was a highlight reel of luxury, expensive restaurants, designer clothes, trips to Dubai, Ghana, South Africa. She was always surrounded by other girls who looked just as expensive, all of them moving through campus like they existed in a different dimension from regular students. Bella didn't usually talk to students like Kristin, Chioma, and Linda. She was in a different stratosphere, socially and economically. So an invitation from her was like a summons from royalty. Why would Bella invite us? Kristin asked suspiciously. She doesn't even know us. She's in my department, Chioma explained. We had a group project last month, and I guess she remembered me. She said it's going to be a big party, lots of important people, and she wants us to come through. She said we're pretty girls and we shouldn't be hiding in the hostel. Linda was already going through her wardrobe, if you could call the pile of clothes hanging on nails hammered into the wall a wardrobe. What are we going to wear? Everything I have looks like it came from Yoruba market. Because it did come from Yoruba market, Chioma pointed out. Exactly my point. But the truth was, they were already convinced. The invitation was too tantalizing, the promise of glimpsing that other world too seductive to resist. They pooled their resources, 2,000 naira for transport, 500 naira for makeup from a girl down the hall who was training to be a makeup artist, and all their combined creativity to assemble outfits that might pass for expensive in dim lighting. The line outside the club stretched down the block, girls in bodycon dresses that cost more than a semester's fees, guys in designer sneakers, bouncers with earpieces checking a list on iPads. The bass from inside the club vibrated through the ground, a promise of the chaos and glamour waiting inside. Kristin felt her confidence evaporating. Maybe we should. There you are. Bella materialized beside them like a fairy godmother, resplendent in a gold dress that caught every light. Her bone-straight hair was fresh, hanging down to her waist, and her face was beat to perfection. Come, don't stand in the line, Bella said, linking arms with Chioma and pulling them toward the entrance. She said something to the bouncer, who nodded and unhooked the velvet rope, and just like that, they were inside. The club was another world. LED lights painted the darkness in shades of purple and gold. The DJ was spinning Afrobeats so loud you could feel it in your chest. And the people, the beautiful people, moved through the space like they owned it, which, given the price of drinks, they probably did. Bella led them to a VIP section cordoned off with another velvet rope, where a group of girls sat around a table laden with bottles of champagne, cognac, expensive spirits that Kristin had only seen in music videos. Girls, these are my friends from school, Bella announced to the group. Kristin, Chioma, Linda, welcome to the good life. The other girls barely looked up, each absorbed in their phones, taking selfies, recording videos for Instagram stories. They all had the same look, bone-straight hair, designer clothes, that particular type of confidence that came from never having to check your account balance before making a purchase. Sit, have a drink, Bella urged, pouring them glasses of champagne without waiting for an answer. Kristin had never tasted champagne before. It was sweeter than she expected, bubbles tickling her nose. The second glass went down easier than the first. Around them, the party pulsed with an energy that was intoxicating even without the alcohol. This was what they'd been missing, locked away in their hostel room counting naira notes and washing underwear by hand. This was living. You girls look tense, one of Bella's friends, a light-skinned girl with green contact lenses, observed. First time at Mirage? First time at any club like this, Linda admitted, and Kristin wished she hadn't. It felt like showing their cards too early. Green contact lenses laughed, not unkindly. Don't worry, everyone starts somewhere. I remember my first time. I was wearing fake Gucci from Balagan Market and thought I was doing something. She gestured at her current outfit, a dress Kristin recognized from a recent fashion magazine. Now look at me. What changed? Chioma asked, and Kristin heard the hunger in her friend's voice, the desperate need to understand the alchemy that transformed ordinary girls into these goddesses of luxury. Green contact lenses exchanged a look with Bella, something unspoken passing between them. Connections, Bella said finally, refilling their glasses. That's what changed. In life, it's not about what you know or how hard you work. It's about who you know. And more importantly, who knows you. As if on cue, a group of men approached their section. Not boys, men. In their 40s, 50s, the kind of men who wore their wealth like cologne. They moved with the confidence of people who had never been told no in their lives. "Ah, Bella," one of them boomed, his voice carrying over the music. "My beautiful daughter. How are you?" He wasn't her father. Everyone knew he wasn't her father. But that's what they called them, daddy, uncle, baba, titles that provided a veneer of respectability to relationships everyone knew were transactional. "Alhaji, good evening sir," Bella greeted, standing to hug him. The other girls followed suit, each greeting the men with practiced familiarity. "Who are these beautiful new faces?" another man asked, his eyes sweeping over Kristin, Chioma, and Linda with the assessing gaze of someone appraising merchandise. "My friends from school, sir," Bella explained. "Very good girls, very intelligent." "They're studying," she paused, waiting. "Law," Kristin supplied numbly. "Accounting," Chioma said. "Mass communication," Linda finished. "Wonderful, wonderful," the first Alhaji exclaimed. "Beautiful and intelligent. Come, come, join us. We're celebrating tonight. My friend just won a major contract with the government. Billions of naira. We must celebrate properly." Before they could respond, they were being ushered to an even larger VIP section, where more bottles appeared, champagne, Hennessy, expensive wines they couldn't pronounce. The Alhajis were generous, gregarious, treating them like prized guests. They asked about their studies, their families, their dreams, listening with the kind of attention that made you feel important, special, and seen. It was intoxicating. More intoxicating than the alcohol. "These girls are suffering in school," Bella said at some point, her voice taking on a concerned tone. "Alhaji, you know how it is. Parents try their best, but it's not enough. These are good girls from good homes, but university is expensive. Books, transport, accommodation, everything costs money." The Alhajis sked sympathetically. "This is the problem with this country," one said. "Brilliant young people suffering while politicians are looting billions. It's not right. We need to help them," another Alhaji said, pulling out a wallet thick with foreign currency. "Education is important. My own daughter is studying in abroad, and I make sure she lacks nothing. These beautiful girls should not suffer." And just like that, without asking, without any negotiation, crisp dollars were being pressed into their hands. "For your books," they said. "For your transport. Buy something nice for yourself." Kristin looked down at the money in her hand, $200. More than she'd ever held at once in her life. She looked at Chioma and Linda, saw the same shock, the same disbelief, the same dangerous spark of possibility in their eyes. This was how it happened. This was how ordinary girls became treasure okeke. Not through violence or coercion, but through kindness, generosity, the simple act of powerful men making you feel valuable. "Thank you, sir," she heard herself say, and the words felt like crossing a threshold she hadn't known existed. The Alhajis beamed. "It's nothing, my dear. Beautiful girls like you deserve to be taken care of. You have our numbers now." When had they exchanged numbers? Kristin couldn't remember, but sure enough, her phone was buzzing with new contacts. "Alhaji Musa, Chief Okafor, Uncle T. Call us anytime you need anything," they said. "Transport money, books, even if you just want to come out and relax like this. We're here for you. Think of us as your uncles, your fathers away from home." Later, much later, as they sat in the bus heading back to campus, watching the city lights blur past, counting and recounting the money they'd been given, none of them acknowledged the price tags that came attached to those dollars. None of them talked about the hands that had lingered too long on their waists, the compliments that had ventured beyond appropriate, the knowing looks exchanged between Bella and the other girls. "This is just the beginning," Bella had whispered as they left. "If you're smart, if you're strategic, this December go be Detty December for you guys. You can go home for Christmas with confidence. You can have everything you've been dreaming of. All you need to do is be willing to play the game." The game. It sounded so innocent when she said it like that. Like Monopoly or chess, something with rules and boundaries and a clear endpoint. They didn't know yet that the game had no rules. That the boundaries shifts constantly. That the endpoint was a cliff disguised as a finish line. "We should use this money for our bone straight," Chioma said, breaking the silence in the bus. She was looking at her phone, scrolling through Instagram, through pictures of girls with sleek, straight hair that cascaded down their backs. "That's the first step. You can't enter their world without looking the part." Linda nodded. "There's a woman inside town. She imports the good quality Brazilian hair. It's expensive, but it lasts. If we're going to do this, we should do it properly." Kristin said nothing. She was holding the dollars in her hand, feeling their texture, their weight. Dollars for sitting in a club for a few hours, for laughing at jokes that weren't funny, for letting an old man call her beautiful and touch her shoulder. Was it really that simple? Was this really how it worked? Her phone buzzed. A message from Alhaji Musa. "It was wonderful meeting you tonight, my dear. You are a very special girl. Call me tomorrow and let's have lunch. I want to know more about you." She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the reply button for a while. Then she typed a response, "Thank you, sir. It was nice meeting you too. I'll call you tomorrow. Asterisk." And she pressed send. The hair appointment was scheduled for the following Saturday at a salon inside town that Bella had recommended. "It's where all the girls go," she'd assured them. "The woman there knows how to lay hair properly. You won't look like those girls whose wigs are sitting on their heads like caps." They had pooled their resources, the money from the Alhajis plus their November allowances. 150K per person for premium Brazilian bone straight hair, 30-inch length. The kind that didn't tangle, didn't mat, looked natural enough that people would do double takes trying to figure out if it was your real hair. The salon was tucked away on a quiet street, unmarked except for a small sign, but inside, it was a temple of transformation. Mirrors lined every wall. LED lights provided perfect lighting for the Instagram pictures that were taken constantly. The air smelled of expensive shampoo, chemical relaxers, and the particular scent of burning hair from the pressing irons that ran constantly. And the girls. The salon was full of them, university students like themselves, young women in their 20s, all of them in various stages of transformation. Some were getting their natural hair braided down in preparation for wigs. Others sat patiently as hair was sewn or glued onto their scalps. The conversations flowed around them like a river, carrying gossip, advice, warnings, and the kind of information you couldn't find in textbooks. "Make sure you tell him you need money for your textbooks," one girl was advising another. "Don't say you want to buy clothes or shoes. They like to think they're helping with your education. Makes them feel like sugar daddies instead of, well, you know." "But what if he wants to come to your place?" another asked nervously. "Tell him you live with your very strict auntie. Or say your room is having electrical issues. There are hotels for that kind of thing. Never let them know where you actually stay. That's basic safety." Kristin, Chioma, and Linda listened, absorbing every word like students in a class they hadn't known they'd enrolled in. The hairstylist assigned to Kristin was a woman in her 30s named Shade, with long nails and an air of efficiency. As she began the process of braiding down Kristin's natural hair, she studied her face in the mirror. "First time getting bone straight?" she asked. "Yes." Shade nodded knowingly. "I can always tell. You have that look, excited but nervous. Like you're about to do something that's going to change your life." She smiled. "And it will. Hair like this, it changes how people see you. More importantly, it changes how you see yourself." "Is it worth it?" Kristin asked quietly. "The money, I mean. It's so expensive." Shade's hands never stopped moving, braiding with practiced speed. "Depends on what you're going to use it for. If you're just getting it to look pretty, then maybe not. But if you're getting it because you're about to enter certain circles, meet certain kinds of people, then yes, it's an investment. In this city, you have to look like money to make money. That's just how it works." "But is it safe?" The question came from Chioma, who was in the next chair. The whole thing. Meeting these men. The salon went quiet for a moment. Then Shade laughed, and the other stylists joined in, a bitter, knowing sound. Safe? Shade repeated. Darling, is anything in this life safe? Is it safe to be poor? Is it safe to graduate with a degree and no job prospects? Is it safe to depend on parents who are one illness, one job loss away from financial ruin? She met Chioma's eyes in the mirror. The question isn't whether it's safe. The question is whether you're smart enough to play the game without losing yourself in it. And how do you do that? Linda asked. Shade paused, her hand still in Kristin's hair. You set boundaries from the beginning. You never let them know your real name, your real address, where your family lives. You always meet in public places first. You travel in groups when you can. You save most of the money they give you instead of spending it all on showing off. You have an exit plan, a timeline for how long you're going to do this before you stop. She resumed braiding. But most importantly, you remember who you are. You remember that this is a transaction, not a relationship. The moment you start catching feelings, the moment you start thinking these men actually care about you beyond what you can provide, that's when you've lost. Does anyone actually stick to these rules? Kristin asked. Shade's expression in the mirror was sad. Some do. Most don't. Most think they're different, special. Most think their alhaji is different from other alhajis. Most think they can control the situation. She tied off a braid. And most learn the hard way that in this game, the house always wins. 6 hours later, Kristin barely recognized herself. The girl staring back at her from the mirror had sleek, bone-straight hair that cascaded down her back like black silk. It caught the light when she moved her head. It swayed when she walked. It transformed her face, made her look expensive, sophisticated, like someone who belonged in VIP sections and luxury cars. Chioma and Linda had undergone similar transformations. They stood in front of the mirror together, taking endless selfies, videos, testing angles and lighting. The excitement was evident. We look like different people, Linda said, wonder in her voice. We look like money, Chioma corrected. And they did. That was the trick of it, the hair wasn't just about beauty. It was a costume, a uniform, a signal to the world that you were a certain kind of girl, had access to certain kinds of resources. It opened doors that had previously been closed. It made you visible in ways you hadn't been before. Kristin took out her phone and called Alhaji Musa. Over the next 2 weeks, their lives transformed with dizzying speed. The phone calls became lunches, the lunches became shopping trips, the shopping trips became overnight stays at luxury hotels. Always with the Alhajis, always with the promise of money, always with the understanding that certain things were expected in return. They learned the unspoken rules quickly. How to laugh at jokes that weren't funny. How to look interested when Alhajis talked endlessly about their business dealings, their political connections, their complaints about their wives who didn't understand them. How to navigate the physical expectations with the minimum amount of actual intimacy, hand-holding, kissing, and eventually, inevitable that felt more like a job than anything else. Kristin's Alhaji was Alhaji Musa, a contractor in his 50s with 3 wives and 7 children. He was relatively gentle, always apologetic about his pot belly, his bad breath, his performance issues that required little blue pills. He gave her 150,000 naira each time they met, plus random transfers when she sent him sob stories about school fees, sick relatives, or emergency expenses. Chioma's sponsor was Chief Okafor, a politician. He was rougher, less concerned with her comfort, but he paid more, sometimes 200,000 naira for a weekend. Linda got Uncle T, a businessman in his 40s who had made his money importing electronics from China. He was married to a Lebanese woman and seemed to prefer the company of girls he could control with money. The money came in steadily now. Not millions, they weren't at that level, but enough. Enough to buy new clothes, new shoes, new phones. Enough to eat at decent restaurants instead of the student cafeteria. Enough to take taxis instead of buses. Enough to send money home and lie about having a part-time job. Their Instagram feeds transformed. Every weekend was a new adventure, a new outfit, a new location. The likes and comments poured in. Classmates who had ignored them before now slid into their DMs asking for their secret. Boys who had never given them a second glance now tried to shoot their shots, not knowing they'd priced themselves out of the market. "We are on fire, girls," Chioma said one night as they sat in their room, counting money, planning their December schedule. "This is what winning looks like." Then Kristin ran into her course advisor, Professor Adeyemi, coming out of a hotel inside town. She was with Alhaji Musa, his hand possessively on her waist, and the professor's eyes met hers across the lobby. She wished she could vanish, but there was no judgment in his gaze, only a deep, profound disappointment that felt worse than any scolding. "The next class," he called her aside. "Kristin," he said gently, "I saw you last week." She started to formulate an excuse, but he held up his hand. "I'm not going to lecture you. You're an adult. You make your own choices. But I want to tell you something." He leaned forward. "I've been teaching in this university for 20 years. I've seen hundreds of brilliant young women come through these halls. And I've watched too many of them get swallowed by this city, by the desire to have more than they can afford, to be more than they are right now." He paused. "Some of them made it out. Most didn't. And the ones who didn't, Kristin, they carry that weight forever. It doesn't matter what they achieve later. They can never quite outrun what they did in those years." "I'm just trying to survive, sir," Kristin said, her voice small. "I know," Professor Adeyemi said sadly. "That's what they all say. That's what they all believe. Until survival becomes something else entirely. Until you forget what you were trying to survive for." He stood up. "I hope you remember, Kristin. I hope you remember before it's too late." She walked away from that conversation with her heart pounding, but by the time she met her friends at the campus gate, she had pushed it aside. Professor Adeyemi was old, from a different generation. He didn't understand the pressures they faced, the way the world had changed. He didn't understand that this was the only way. Christmas was approaching. Their Detty December. Their glamorous Christmas. Their moment to prove to everyone back home that they have arrived. They just had to hold on a little longer. But the Alhajis were getting bolder. The requests that had seemed manageable at first were escalating. Uncle T gave Linda an ultimatum to let him record them having it or he would stop sponsoring her. And then there was Bella's new proposal. "There's this big party happening in mid-December," she told them over lunch at one of the expensive restaurants they now frequented. "A very big party. Some of the most powerful men in all over the country will be there, ministers, senators, oil magnates. They're looking for beautiful, intelligent girls to attend. The pay is serious, 300,000 per girl for one night. You just have to be there, look good, entertain the guests." "Entertain how?" Kristin asked carefully. Bella waved her hand dismissively. "Just chat, dance, pour drinks. Nothing crazy. It's like being a hostess at a corporate event. Some girls might hook up with the men they meet there, but that's their choice. Nobody will force you to do anything. 500,000 naira. For one night." It was really inviting. "But there's a catch," Bella continued. "They're looking for girls who are flexible. Who understand how these things work. Who won't make trouble or embarrass themselves by being naive." She looked at each of them. "Are you girls flexible?" They all knew what flexible meant. It meant agreeing to whatever the men wanted. It meant silencing the voice in your head that said this was wrong. It meant stepping over lines you'd drawn in the sand and pretending the sand had never been there. "We'll think about it," Chioma said finally, because saying no felt like closing a door they weren't ready to close yet. But the truth was, they had already decided. They had come too far to turn back now. The money they'd spent, the lifestyle they'd begun to maintain, the expectations they'd created for their families about their Christmas homecoming, all of it required them to keep going, to keep saying yes, to keep being flexible. Then, the warning came from an unexpected source. Her name was Adana, and she cornered them one evening outside the library. She was a final-year student they'd seen around campus, always alone, always dressed plainly, with natural hair that she kept in simple styles. She had the look of someone who had once been beautiful but had somehow dimmed, like a light turned down low. "I need to talk to you girls," she said, her voice urgent. "About Bella and her friends. About the Alhajis." "We're not interested in," Linda started, but Adana cut her off. "I was you," she said flatly. 3 years ago, I was exactly where you are. New phone, new hair, new life. Bella recruited me too. The same promises, the same parties, the same Alhajis. Despite themselves, they listened. "It starts small," Adana continued, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Small requests, small compromises. You tell yourself it's just temporary, just until you finish school, just until you save enough money. But the problem is, enough is never enough. You always need just a little bit more. One more semester. One more phone upgrade. One more trip. One more expensive thing to prove to everyone, and yourself, that you're winning." She pulled out her phone, showed them pictures. A girl who looked like her but wasn't, a girl with bright eyes, perfect makeup, designer clothes, standing in front of a Mercedes-Benz. "That was me 2 years ago. I had everything. Money, clothes, a car my sponsor bought me. I was going to graduate, use the connections I'd made to get a good job, leave it all behind." Her laugh was bitter. "You know what I have now?" They waited. "Herpes," Adana said bluntly. "Incurable. One of the Alhajis gave it to me. I don't even know which one because there were so many by the end. I also have PTSD from a weekend trip that went very, very wrong. I won't go into details, but let's just say flexible doesn't mean they respect your boundaries." She looked at each of them. "My grades suffered so much I had to repeat a year. My family found out what I was doing and my father won't speak to me anymore. The car got repossessed when my sponsor got tired of me and moved on to younger girls. And the money? All that money? Gone. Spent on maintaining an image, on trying to keep up with other girls, on medical bills and therapy I can barely afford." "We're not like you," Chioma said defensively. "We have boundaries. We're being smart about this." "That's what I said," Adana replied. "That's what every girl says. We all think we're special, smarter than the ones who came before us. We all think we'll be the exception." She stepped closer. "But here's what they don't tell you, the game is rigged. You think you're playing them, but they're playing you. And they've had decades of practice while you're just learning the rules." "Why are you telling us this?" Kristin asked. "Because someone tried to warn me and I didn't listen," Adana said. "Because I see myself in you girls from good homes, trying to make something of yourselves in a city that doesn't care if you live or die. Because maybe, just maybe, one of you will be smarter than I was." She turned to walk away, then stopped. "That party Bella is recruiting for in December? I went to one like it 2 years ago. 3 girls never came home from that party. The police couldn't do anything because the men involved are too powerful. Their families are still looking for them." She walked away, leaving them standing in the gathering darkness. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Linda broke the silence. "She's just bitter," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. She obviously didn't know how to handle her business properly. "We're different." "Are we?" Kristin asked quietly. "Yes," Chioma said firmly. "We are. Because we're not going to get carried away like she did. We have a plan. We do this just until Christmas, make our money, go home and show everyone we're doing well, then we focus on school and leave all of this behind. That's the plan. We stick to the plan." It sounded reasonable when Chioma said it like that. It sounded like they were still in control, still making conscious choices, still the same girls who had sat in their hostel room counting Naira notes just a few weeks ago. But Kristin couldn't shake Adana's words. More specifically, she couldn't shake the look in Adana's eyes, the haunted, hollowed-out look of someone who had lost something they could never get back. The next few days passed in a blur of hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and the constant, exhausting performance of being someone they weren't. The money kept coming, but so did the demands. Alhaji Musa was getting possessive. He wanted Kristin to be available whenever he called, got angry when she said she had classes or exams. "I'm paying you good money," he reminded her. "The least you can do is make time for me." Chief Okafor had started showing up at Chioma's campus unannounced, embarrassing her in front of her classmates. When she complained, he gave her 100,000 naira and told her to stop being ungrateful. Uncle T had convinced Linda to let him record them, promising the video was just for his private use, would never leave his phone. But Linda had seen him showing it to his friend during a business meeting, the two men laughing and making comments about her body like she wasn't human, just entertainment. Their grades were suffering. Kristin had missed 3 assignments and 2 tests. Chioma had stopped going to her morning classes entirely because she was too tired from late nights with Chief Okafor. Linda had fallen asleep during an important presentation and her lecturer had called her out in front of the entire class. But Christmas was coming. Their glamorous December. Just hold on a little longer. They went shopping at Palms Mall, using the Alhaji's money to buy outfits for their trip home. Designer bags, fake, but good fakes that could pass for real to people who didn't know better. Shoes from expensive stores. Jewelry that glittered under the lights. They tried things on, took pictures, posted to Instagram with captions about blessings and hard work. In the mirror of the dressing room, Kristin caught a glimpse of herself. The bone-straight hair was still perfect, the makeup flawless, the clothes expensive. But her eyes looked tired. There were shadows under them that no amount of concealer could fully hide. She looked older somehow, harder. When had that happened? "Kristin, come see this dress." Chioma called from outside the dressing room, her voice bright with forced enthusiasm. Kristin plastered on a smile and stepped out. The show had to go on. The night before they were supposed to give Bella their final answer about the Christmas party, Kristin's mother called. "My daughter, how are you?" Her mother's voice was warm, full of love and pride. "We're all preparing for your arrival. Your father has been telling everyone that his daughter is coming home from city. You know how he is, always bragging about you." Guilt twisted in Kristin's stomach like a knife. "Your brother won't stop talking about the Christmas gift you're going to give him," her mother continued. "I told him not to put pressure on you, that you're still a student, but he's so excited. He keeps telling his friends his big sister is going to come back with latest things from city. Mama, and your father and we're just so proud of you, you know? In all these years of suffering, struggling to send you to school, we never thought we would see the day when things would be this good for you. That part-time job has been such a blessing. God has really been faithful." Kristin closed her eyes. If only her mother knew what part-time job really meant. If only she knew the price of the blessings she was celebrating. "We can't wait to see you," her mother said. "December 22nd, right? That's when you're coming home?" "Yes, Mama." "Okay, my dear. We love you. Keep making us proud." The call ended, and Kristin sat in the darkness of her room, the phone still pressed to her ear. Keep making us proud. But how could she make them proud when everything they were proud of was built on lies and shame? How could she go home with gifts bought with money earned on her back? How could she look her younger brother in the eye and tell him to work hard and be honest when she was neither of those things? Chioma found her like that an hour later, still sitting in the dark. "We need to talk about the party," Chioma said. "Bella needs an answer by tomorrow." "I don't know if we should do it," Kristin said quietly. "What? Why? Didn't you hear what Adana said? Girls going missing? That is too dangerous." "Adana is a bitter person who couldn't handle her business," Chioma said impatiently. Besides, we've already committed to going home for Christmas looking a certain way. My family is expecting me to show up with money to help with my mother's treatment. Your family is expecting you to bring gifts. Linda's family is expecting her to help with the party they're throwing. How are we going to do all of that without this money? Maybe we tell them the truth, Kristin suggested. Maybe we tell them we don't have as much money as we've been pretending to have. And look like failures? Chioma's voice rose. Go home empty-handed after all the pictures we've been posting on Instagram? Face all the people we told we were doing well? My mother is sick, Kristin. She needs money for treatment. Real money, not hopes and prayers. But at what cost? Kristin asked. What are we willing to do for this money? Where's the line? Chioma was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, colder. There is no line. That's what we've been learning all along, we just didn't want to admit it. The line is wherever we decide it is, and we keep moving it because we have to. Because the alternative is going back to being those broke girls who couldn't afford bone-straight hair, who everyone pitied or ignored. But we're not those girls anymore, Kristin said. We've changed. And not in a good way. We've evolved, Chioma corrected. We've learned how life works. We've learned how to survive. And now we're being given an opportunity to make more money in one night than most people make in 3 months. 500,000 naira, Kristin. Do you know what we can do with that money? Kristin did know. 500,000 naira could pay her tuition for next semester. Could buy real gifts for her family, not the cheap things she'd been planning to get. Could give her a buffer, some breathing room, maybe even a way out if she was smart about it. But Adana's words echoed in her mind, you always need just a little bit more. Enough is never enough. Linda already said yes, Chioma continued. It's just you and me left. We've come this far together. Don't fall apart on us now. And there it was, the real trap. Not the money, not the alhajis, not even the lifestyle. The trap was the friendship, the solidarity, the fear of being left behind by the people who understood you best. One last time, Kristin heard herself say. We do this party, make the money, go home for Christmas, and then we're done. We focus on school next semester. We go back to being regular students. One last time, Chioma agreed. I promise. They both knew it was a lie. You can't unring a bell. You can't unknow what you know, unsee what you've seen. You can't go back to being the girl who thought 23,000 naira was enough to survive when you've held hundreds of thousands in your hands. But they told themselves the lie anyway, because the alternative was admitting they were already lost. The next morning, they called Bella and confirmed their attendance at the December party. She was thrilled. You girls are making the right decision, she said. This party is going to change your lives. Just remember, dress sexy but classy. Hair and makeup perfect. And most importantly, no attitude. These men are paying good money for your company. Give them what they want, and they'll give you what you need. After the call, they went to class, or tried to. But sitting in a lecture hall listening to a professor talk about constitutional law or financial accounting felt surreal, disconnected from the reality they were now living. What did any of this academic knowledge matter when they'd learned that the real education happened in hotel rooms and VIP sections? Kristin's phone buzzed during class. A message from Professor Adeyemi, *, please see me during my office hours today. It's important. *. She ignored it. She couldn't face his disappointed eyes, his gentle concern. She couldn't face anyone who reminded her of who she used to be before all of this started. At lunch, they sat at their usual spot in the cafeteria, but everything felt different. They were different. They sat with their bone-straight hair and their expensive phones and their designer bags, fake, but nobody needed to know that, and they watched the other students, the regular students, the ones who were still innocent, still believed that hard work and honesty would be enough. Do you ever regret it? Linda asked suddenly. Starting all of this? Chioma didn't hesitate. No. We did what we had to do. But Kristin noticed that Linda had bags under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. That her hand shook slightly when she picked up her fork. That she jumped every time her phone buzzed, like she was afraid of what message might be waiting. Linda, are you okay? Kristin asked. I'm fine, Linda said too quickly. Just tired. Uncle T has been demanding lately. What do you mean? Linda was quiet for a moment, pushing food around her plate. Finally, he wants me to introduce him to my younger sister. She's 16, in SS3. He says he'll pay me well if I bring her to meet him. The cafeteria noise seemed to fade away. Kristin felt like she was underwater, everything muffled and distant. You told him no, right? Chioma said. Of course I told him no, Linda snapped. What do you think I am? But there was something in her voice, a hesitation that made Kristin's blood run cold. Linda, Kristin said carefully, you're not even thinking about. I said no. Linda interrupted. God, why are you both looking at me like that? I'm not a monster. I would never, she trailed off, then stood up abruptly. I need to go to class. She left before they could stop her. Kristin and Chioma sat in silence. She wouldn't, Chioma said finally. She wouldn't do that to her own sister. A month ago, we wouldn't have done any of this, Kristin replied. We wouldn't have believed we were capable of sleeping with men old enough to be our fathers for money. We wouldn't have believed we could lie so easily to our families. We wouldn't have believed we could ignore every warning sign and keep going anyway. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe we don't know what we're capable of anymore. Maybe we've already crossed so many lines that there are no lines left. Chioma stood up, gathering her things. You're overthinking this. Linda is fine. We're all fine. We just need to get through this December party, make our money, and then we can figure everything else out. She looked at Kristin, and there was something desperate in her eyes. We're fine, Kristin. We have to be fine. She walked away, leaving Kristin alone in the cafeteria. Kristin pulled out her phone and stared at Professor Adeyemi's message. She should go see him. She should tell him everything. She should ask for help before it was too late. Instead, she deleted the message and opened Instagram. Her feed was full of other girls like her, girls with bone-straight hair and expensive lifestyles, girls posting pictures from parties and clubs, girls showing off gifts from their sponsors. They all looked happy, successful, like they had figured out the secret to winning at life. But Kristin was learning to see past the filters and angles, past the carefully curated happiness. She was learning to see the exhaustion in their smiles, the emptiness in their eyes, the desperation hidden beneath the designer clothes. They were all drowning, all of them. They'd just gotten really good at drowning beautifully. That night, as Kristin lay in her bed staring at the ceiling, her phone buzzed with a message from Bella. Party details, December 20th, transportation provided. Dress code, evening gown, very sexy. Payment, $500K cash, no transfers. Some girls might get offered more for special services. This is your chance to really set yourself up for next semester. Don't waste it. December 20th. 3 days before she was supposed to go home for Christmas. 3 days before she was supposed to walk into her parents' house and pretend she had earned every naira through honest work and part-time jobs. She looked at Chioma and Linda, both already asleep, or pretending to be. They'd made their choice. They'd said yes to the party, yes to whatever came next, yes to following this path wherever it led. And Kristin? She thought about Professor Adeyemi's disappointed eyes. About Adana's warning. About the girl she used to be just 2 months ago, counting 23,000 naira and thinking it was all she needed. She thought about her mother's voice, keep making us proud. She thought about her younger brother, waiting for her to come home and show him what success looked like. She thought about the 500,000 naira waiting for her at a party where girls sometimes disappeared and men with power did whatever they wanted. The bone-straight hair lay on the pillow beside her, perfect and expensive and everything she'd thought she wanted. As Kristin lay in the darkness, she asked herself a question she already knew the answer to. Was being seen worth becoming invisible to yourself? What happens when the pursuit of external validation costs you your internal peace? When does survival become destruction? And how far would you go to avoid being less than others? Christmas was fast approaching and every streets transformed overnight. Christmas decorations appeared on every lamp-post. Massive billboards advertised parties, concerts, beach hangouts. The air itself seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Detty December, the season when Lagos became the playground of the wealthy, the ambitious, and the desperate. Kristin woke up that morning to a bank alert of NGN 100K. From Alhaji. Description for my special girl. Have a wonderful December. Asterisk. She stared at the message, her phone screen glowing in the dim hostel room. 100,000 naira. Sent casually, the way normal people sent good morning texts. This was her life now, a life where money appeared in her account like magic, where powerful men competed for her attention, where she'd become the kind of girl other girls envied. Did your daddy send something? Chioma asked from her bed, already scrolling through her own phone. Kristin noticed Chioma didn't say Alhaji anymore. They'd adopted the language of the other girls. These men were daddies, uncles, sponsors. Never clients. Never Johns. Those words belonged to prostitutes, and they weren't prostitutes. They were university students with sponsors. There was a difference. Wasn't there? 100,000, Kristin replied. Chief sent me 150, Chioma said with satisfaction. I told him I needed money for textbooks and he just sent it, no questions asked. Linda emerged from the bathroom, her bone-straight hair wrapped in a silk scarf. She looked different these days, harder around the edges, like something inside her had calcified. Uncle T wants to take me shopping today. He says I need a proper wardrobe for December. She said it casually, but Kristin heard the tremor underneath. They got ready together, transforming their cramped hostel room into a makeshift beauty parlor. Makeup covered the shadows under their eyes. Expensive perfume masked the scent of fear that had started to cling to them like humidity. Designer clothes, some real, most fake, created the illusion of girls who had their lives together. By the time they stepped out of Moremi Hall, they looked like success. They looked like they were winning. And isn't that what everyone in Lagos was trying to do? Look like they were winning until looking became being? The campus treated them differently now. Girls whispered as they passed. Some whispers were admiring, see their hair, their clothes, their confidence. Other whispers were poisonous, runs girls, ashawo, they're sleeping with old men. But whispers couldn't pay school fees. Whispers couldn't buy bone-straight hair. Whispers couldn't give you the kind of life that made your Instagram followers double in a month. So they walked with their heads high, three queens in a kingdom of judgment, pretending the crown of shame they wore was actually made of gold. But gold, even fake gold, tarnishes quickly in humidity. Alhaji picked Kristin up from campus in his Range Rover. He drove past their usual hotel. Where are we going? Kristin asked, trying to keep her voice light. There's someone I want you to meet, Alhaji said. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. A very important business associate of mine. He's in town for just 2 days and he expressed interest in meeting you. Something cold slithered down Kristin's spine. What do you mean, expressed interest? You're a beautiful girl, Kristin. Intelligent. Classy. My friend noticed you in some pictures I showed him, and he would like to spend some time with you. Alhaji glanced at her. He's willing to pay very well. 800,000 for one evening. That's more than I give you in a month. The car suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. You're trying to pass me to your friend? Kristin's voice came out strangled. Don't say it like that, Alhaji said, irritation creeping into his tone. I'm creating an opportunity for you. Do you know who this man is? He's connected to the presidency. One evening with him could set you up for life. Other girls would kill for this chance. I'm not other girls, Kristin said, but her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. Really? Alhaji pulled the car over abruptly, turning to face her. Because from where I'm sitting, you're exactly like other girls. You take my money, you spend it on hair and clothes and whatever else, but when I ask you for a small favor, you want to act like you're too good? His face hardened. Let me tell you something. You think I'm paying you all this money because I enjoy your company? You think I care about your dreams and aspirations? You're a transaction, Kristin. A very pretty transaction, but a transaction nonetheless. The words hit her like slaps. This man, who had called her my special girl, who had listened to her talk about her family, who had seemed almost gentle, this man had never seen her as human. She'd been a product all along. Something to use, to trade, to pass around to friends like a bottle of expensive wine. Take me back, Kristin said quietly. What? Take me back to campus. Now. Alhaji Musa's jaw clenched. For a moment, she saw something dangerous flash in his eyes, something that reminded her she was alone with him, that no one knew where she was, that girls like her disappeared sometimes and no one asked too many questions. Then he laughed, a harsh sound without humor. Fine. Go back. Go back to your hostel room and your Gary and your poverty. But don't call me again. Don't call me when your school fees are due, when your rent is overdue, when you need data or transport money. You had a chance to upgrade, and you chose to be small. He drove her back in silence. When she got out of the car, he didn't give her any money. For the first time since this all started, she left empty-handed. She stood at the campus gate, watching the Range Rover disappear into traffic, and felt something inside her heart, not regret. She didn't regret refusing. But fear. Deep, nauseating fear. Because Alhaji had revealed the truth, she wasn't a girlfriend, a companion, or even a person to these men. She was inventory. And inventory that refused to cooperate got replaced. Kristin wasn't the only one discovering the true nature of their arrangement. That same week, Chioma came back to the hostel with a black eye poorly concealed under makeup. What happened? Linda demanded, but Chioma waved her off. I'm fine. Just had a small misunderstanding with Chief. A misunderstanding that gave you a black eye? Kristin pressed. Chioma finally looked up, and the expression on her face was something between shame and rage. He wanted to do things. Things I said I wasn't comfortable with. When I refused, he got angry. Said he was paying me good money and I should stop acting like I had a choice. She touched her eye gingerly. He apologized after. Sent money. Said it won't happen again. And you believe him? Linda asked. What choice do I have? Chioma shot back. My mother's medical bills are due next week. Do you know how much kidney treatment costs? Do you have 150,000 naira I can borrow? The room fell silent. It won't happen again, Chioma repeated, but she was saying it to herself now, trying to believe it. I just need to be smarter. Need to learn how to manage him better. Bella says some men need special handling, that's all. But Kristin saw the tremor in Chioma's hands, saw how she flinched when her phone buzzed, saw the way her friend was disappearing, not all at once, but in pieces. Uncle T is bringing another man next week, Linda announced one evening. So you're just going to do it? Kristin asked. After what happened to me with Alhaji. You're just going to let yourself be passed around? At least I'm being honest about what we are, Linda snapped. At least I'm not pretending we have any power here. We stopped having power the moment we said yes to their first offer. Everything after that has just been us pretending we're making choices when really, the choices were made for us. Was she right? Kristin wondered. Few days until the big party. But they didn't know what was coming yet. So, are we confirmed for the 20th? Bella asked over the music. At the club. We're confirmed, Chioma said. Kristin noticed she was drinking more than usual, her movements slightly uncoordinated. Good. Because I'm telling you, this party is going to change everything. The men attending, we're talking ministers, oil tycoons, people with real power. You play your cards right, you could end up with a monthly retainer. I know girls who get more than $500,000 a month just to be on call for these men. $500,000 a month. The number danced in Kristin's head, seductive and terrifying. With that kind of money, she could actually stop. She could save and could plan, she could have an actual future beyond the next hotel room, the next lie, and the next compromise. But you have to be willing to be flexible, Bella continued, and there was that word again. Flexible. These men, they have specific tastes. Some of them like things rough. Some like groups. Some like to film. You have to be okay with whatever they want. That's what you're being paid for. What if someone isn't okay with something? A new girl asked, younger than them, probably first year, eyes still holding some innocence. Bella's smile didn't reach her eyes. Then they don't get paid. Simple as that. Nobody's forcing anyone to do anything. But if you take the money, you provide the service. That's how the business works. Business. As if they were selling shoes or handbags instead of pieces of their souls. The night wore on. More drinks, more men with wandering hands and expensive watches, more performance of girls who weren't really themselves anymore. Then Kristin saw her. Across the club, near the bathroom, a girl was crying. Not the pretty crying of someone looking for attention, but the ugly, desperate crying of someone breaking apart. Two men were holding her arms, trying to drag her toward the exit. She was fighting, but she was small and they were strong and no one around them seemed to care or even notice. Kristin recognized her, another student from her campus, a girl named Chioma who had been in this life longer than them. Something's wrong, Kristin said, standing up. Sit down, Bella said sharply. That doesn't concern you. They're hurting her. She's probably just drunk and causing drama. Don't get involved in other people's business. But Kristin was already moving through the crowd, Linda and Chioma reluctantly following. By the time they reached the exit, the men had pushed Chioma into a car. Through the window, Kristin saw her face, terrified, pleading, but trapped. We have to do something, Kristin said. Like what? Linda asked helplessly. Call the police? And tell them what? That a girl who's probably registered as their guest is being taken somewhere. You think the police in this city will choose us over men who can afford to rent out VIP sections? The car drove away. The club music continued. People kept dancing and drinking, pretending they hadn't just witnessed something dark and wrong. They went back to their table in silence. What's going to happen to her? Chioma asked Bella quietly. Bella took a long sip of her drink before answering. Depends. If she's smart and does what they want, she'll be back next weekend with new hair and a story about how she overreacted. If she's not smart, she trailed off with a shrug. Some girls just aren't cut out for this life. They think they can take the money without paying the price. Life doesn't work like that. Kristin felt nauseous. The alcohol in her stomach turned acidic, threatening to come back up. This was their world now. A world where girls disappeared into cars and no one helped because everyone was complicit, everyone was compromised, everyone had taken money that came with invisible chains. The next morning, news spread through campus WhatsApp groups. Chioma had been found at a hospital. She'd been drugged, assaulted by multiple men, and dumped on the side of the road. But she was alive, barely alive, and she wasn't talking, not to police, not to her family, not to anyone. Fear had sealed her mouth shut. The story spread, but it spread with blame attached. She was doing runs. She probably took the money then tried to back out. What did she expect, hanging around those kinds of men? No one said the men were wrong. No one said the men should face consequences. The blame always fell on the girls. Kristin wanted to visit Chioma at the hospital, but Bella sent a group message, * stay away from her. The men involved are asking questions about who saw what. Anyone who makes noise will become a problem. And problems disappear in this town. That same day, Alhaji sent Kristin a message, I hope you're reconsidering your attitude. My friend is still interested. The offer stands, 200K for one evening. But his patience has limits. She didn't respond. But the message sat in her phone like a ticking bomb. Chief Okafor showed up at Chioma's faculty building. In front of her classmates, he gave her an envelope of money and loudly said, for your upkeep, my dear. Make sure you eat well. The humiliation on Chioma's face was visible from across the courtyard. Everyone knew what she was now. The secret they'd tried to keep was public knowledge. Linda came back one afternoon with dead eyes and money in her account and wouldn't talk about what had happened. Just locked herself in the bathroom for 2 hours while water ran and Kristin and Chioma pretended not to hear her crying. Kristin skipped class to meet Professor Adeyemi. She didn't plan to, her feet just carried her to his office, like some part of her brain that wasn't completely broken yet was trying to save her. He looked up when she knocked, and something like relief crossed his face. Kristin. I'd given up hope that you'd come. She sat down across from his desk, suddenly exhausted. The performance of being okay had drained everything from her. I need help, she said simply. Professor Adeyemi leaned forward. I'm listening. And she told him. Not everything, she couldn't bear to give him every detail, but enough. The Alhajis, the money, the trap she'd walked into thinking it was opportunity. The way it had started small and grown until she didn't recognize herself anymore. The party coming up that she knew, was dangerous but felt unable to refuse. You can say no, Professor Adeyemi said when she finished. You always have the power to say no. But I don't, Kristin replied. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I've already spent money I don't have, made promises to my family I can't keep. If I back out now, I have nothing. I'll be exactly where I started but worse because now everyone knows what I've been doing. At least if I go through with it, I get the money. I get something out of all this shame. You get money, Professor Adeyemi agreed. But what do you lose? And I'm not talking about abstract concepts like dignity or self-worth. I'm talking about concrete things. Safety. Health. Future opportunities. Your ability to trust yourself. He paused. Kristin, I've seen this story play out dozens of times. And it never ends well for the girls involved. But some girls make it out, right? Kristin asked desperately. Some girls do this for a while, make their money, and move on? Professor Adeyemi's face was sad. Some do. But even those who make it out carry it with them. The trauma doesn't disappear just because you stop answering the phone calls. The shame doesn't evaporate just because you graduate. And the pattern of trading yourself for survival, that becomes embedded in you. You start to believe that's all you're worth. That's all you can offer the world. So what do I do? Kristin asked, and she hated how small her voice sounded, how much she sounded like the child she no longer was. You stop, he said simply. Right now. Today. You tell your friends the party is a bad idea. You face whatever consequences come from backing out. You accept help, there are campus resources, counseling services, emergency loans for students in crisis. You give yourself a chance to become someone other than this. It sounded simple when he said it like that. Just stop. Just walk away. But Professor Adeyemi didn't understand that walking away required somewhere to walk to. And when you have already burned all your bridges pretending to be someone you weren't, where exactly were you supposed to go? That night, Adana came to their hostel room door. She looked worse than the last time Kristin had seen her, thinner, more worn, like life was actively consuming her from the inside out. I heard you're going to a party on the 20th, Adana said without preamble. Bella's party. How did you? Everyone knows. That's how these things work. The party isn't secret. It's just that most people are too smart or too scared to go. She looked at each of them. I need to show you something. She pulled out her phone and showed them pictures. Girls. Beautiful girls with bone-straight hair and designer clothes and bright smiles. Then she swiped, showing those same girls later, bruised, broken, some in hospital beds, some in caskets. These are girls who went to parties like the one you're planning to attend, Adana said flatly. This one, Blessing, she was 19. Went to a party in December 2 years ago. They found her body in a lagoon 3 weeks later. This one, Gozi, she survived but she's in a psychiatric facility now. Can't even remember her own name. This one, Temi, she's alive but she's HIV positive and addicted to drugs they gave her at the party to make her compliant. The room was deathly silent. This is what Bella isn't telling you, Adana continued. This is what you're really signing up for. These men, they don't see you as human. You're entertainment. You're toys. And when toys break, they throw them away and get new ones. Why are you showing us this? Linda asked, her voice barely a whisper. Because someone should have shown me, Adana replied. Because maybe, you're smarter than I was. Maybe you'll actually listen before it's too late. She stood to leave, then turned back. But probably not. Most girls don't listen. Most girls think they're the exception, that they're special, that their experience will be different. Most girls have to learn by living through it. She paused at the door. If you do go, at least tell someone where you'll be. Leave a trail. So when you disappear, people know where to start looking. And she left. She's just trying to scare us, Chioma said, but her voice shook. Maybe she should scare us, Kristin replied. Maybe fear is the appropriate response to what we're about to do. So what, we just back out? Lose that amount of money? Or face the Alhajis who'll be angry we wasted their time? Linda stood up, pacing. We're already in this. We already took their money, already did things we can't take back. Backing out now doesn't make us innocent again. It just makes us broke and stupid. Better broke and alive than rich and dead, Kristin said. Are you sure about that? Linda shot back. Because I'm tired, Kristin. I'm so tired of struggling, of being afraid, of never having enough. At least if I'm going to sell my soul, I want to get a good price for it. They'd made their decision, they were going. Not because they wanted to, but because the alternative felt impossible. They'd traveled too far down this road to turn back now. Or at least, that's what they told themselves. Bella sent detailed instructions, * dress code, is evening gowns, very revealing. Hair and makeup must be perfect. You'll be picked up at 8 p.m. from the meeting point, address attached. Leave your IDs at home, no names will be used. You'll be assigned numbers. Payment is cash on departure. Rules, no phones during the party, they'll be collected. No recording. No refusing. Whatever is asked, you do. Any girl who causes problems will be handled. Questions? *. Kristin stared at the message. No phones. No names. No refusing. This wasn't a party. This is a trap. But the money is very attractive. They went shopping for the evening gowns using money from their sponsors. The irony wasn't lost on Kristin, they were using money from predators to make themselves more appealing to other predators. They were funding their own exploitation. In the dressing room of an expensive boutique, Kristin looked at herself in the mirror. The gown was beautiful, black, tight, leaving little to imagination. Her bone-straight hair cascaded down her back. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a girl who had everything figured out. But her eyes betrayed her. They held the look of an animal in a trap, pretending not to panic while gnawing at its own leg, trying to decide if freedom was worth the price of self-amputation. We look amazing, Chioma said, but even she didn't sound convinced anymore. Linda said nothing. She had barely spoken in days, moving through life like a ghost, already dead but not yet buried. That night, Kristin's phone rang. Her mother. My daughter. We're so excited. Your father has been preparing the house, inviting everyone for when you arrive. We're planning a big Thanksgiving at church. Mama, I need to tell you something, Kristin interrupted. Silence on the other end. Then, what's wrong? Are you okay? And there it was, the moment. The moment when she could tell the truth, could ask for help, could admit she'd made terrible choices and needed to come home, consequences be damned. I'm fine, Mama, Kristin heard herself say. Just wanted to tell you I love you. We love you too, my dear. See you on the 22nd. The call ended. Kristin sat in the darkness and cried for the first time in weeks, not pretty crying, but ugly, soul-wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken inside her. She cried for the girl she used to be. She cried for the lies she'd told. She cried for the trap she'd walked into willingly, eyes open but mind closed to the consequences. Most of all, she cried because she knew, that in 2 days, she was going to walk into that party anyway. Because the girl who could say no, the girl who could choose safety over money, that girl had died somewhere between November and December in quest for Detty December. And Kristin didn't know how to resurrect her. They sat in their hostel room, a night to the party. 3 girls on the edge of a cliff, pretending it was just another evening. They painted their nails, tested makeup looks, tried on their gowns one more time. They performed normalcy while terror hummed beneath their skin like high-voltage electricity. My cousin is getting married next month, Chioma said suddenly, apropos of nothing. She wants me to be one of her bridesmaids. She sent me pictures of the bridesmaid dresses, they're beautiful. Purple lace, very traditional. She paused. I wonder if I'll still be able to go. If I'll still be, me, after tomorrow. Linda looked up from her nails. We're going to be fine. Bella has been doing this for years. If it was really that dangerous, she wouldn't keep going back. Or maybe she's too broken to stop, Kristin said quietly. Maybe she's like us, too far in to see a way out. Don't say that, Linda snapped. Don't make it sound like we're victims. We made choices. We're making choices. We're choosing this. Are we? Kristin challenged. Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like the choice was made for us a long time ago. We're just following a script that was written before we even knew we were actors. The argument that had been brewing for days finally erupted. Voices raised, tears fell, accusations flew. They argued about who suggested this life first, who pressured whom, who was to blame for where they'd ended up. They argued because arguing felt better than accepting the truth. They were all complicit. They had all chosen this, step by step, compromise by compromise, until the sum of small choices had become an inescapable destiny. The argument ended with exhaustion, not resolution. They lay in their separate beds, pretending to sleep while actually staring at ceilings and contemplating the mathematics of survival. At 3 a.m., Kristin's phone buzzed. A message from Bella in the group chat: tonight is your golden opportunity. Play smart, and December 20th will be the day your life changes forever. See you at 8 p.m. Don't be late. And girls? Whatever happens, remember, you chose this. Nobody forced you. You chose this. Kristin read the message over and over, the words burning into her retinas. You chose this. But had they? Or had the city life chosen for them? Had poverty chosen? Had the Instagram algorithm that showed them everyone else's curated perfect lives chosen? Had the Alhajis with their smooth words and heavy wallets chosen? Had a society that valued women by their hair texture and phone models chosen? We. As December 20th dawned, bright and merciless and full of terrible promise, 3 girls prepared to walk into a nightmare they'd been warned about repeatedly but had convinced themselves would somehow be different for them. December 20th, 7:45 p.m. The meeting point was a parking lot behind a closed shopping complex. Discreet. Anonymous. The kind of place where no one would remember seeing three girls get into a black van with tinted windows. Kristin's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she applied another layer of lipstick in the dim light. The evening gown clung to her body like a second skin. Her bone-straight hair felt heavy on her shoulders. "We can still leave," she said for the 100th time that evening. "And go where?" Chioma replied, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. The black eye Chief Okafor had given her was still faintly visible beneath layers of concealer. "We're here. We might as well see it through." Linda said nothing. She hadn't spoken since they left campus. She stood apart from them, staring at nothing, her arms wrapped around herself despite the warm December evening. At exactly 8 p.m., the black van pulled up. No license plates, Kristin noticed immediately. The driver wore sunglasses even though the sun had set an hour ago. He didn't greet them, didn't ask for names. Just opened the sliding door and gestured for them to get in. This was it. The moment of decision. Get in the van or walk away. What would you do? If you were standing there, having ignored every warning, having rationalized every red flag, having convinced yourself that money could fill the holes in your soul, what would you do? They got in. The door slid shut with a sound like a casket closing. Inside, there were 3 other girls already seated. Strangers, but not really, they all had the same look. The same bone-straight hair. The same expensive but slightly desperate energy. The same awareness that they were traveling towards something they couldn't quite see but could definitely feel. No one spoke during the drive. The van wound through streets, taking turns that Kristin tried to memorize but quickly lost track of. They had been driving for 30 minutes when she realized they were leaving the city, heading somewhere else. Somewhere remote. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out instinctively. "Phones," the driver said flatly, holding out a black bag without turning around. "But phones. Now." One by one, they dropped their phones into the bag. Their last connection to the outside world, to safety, to anyone who might help them. Gone. The van drove on into the darkness. The house, if you could call it that, was a massive compound surrounded by high walls and security gates. No signs, no address markers, nothing to indicate where they were. Just a sprawling mansion lit up like a luxury hotel, with expensive cars parked in a circular driveway. Music throbbed from inside. Not club music, but something slower. The kind of music that soundtracks bad decisions in movies. Bella was waiting in the foyer, dressed in gold that made her look like a trophy someone had won. Her smile was bright and empty. "My girls. You made it. Come, come, let me show you around." She led them through the house, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than their combined tuition. Other girls were scattered throughout, all beautiful, all wearing gowns that revealed more than they concealed, all wearing the same fixed smile that Bella wore. "The men are in the main lounge," Bella explained, her voice taking on a businesslike efficiency. "You'll be introduced by number, not name. Number 1 through 8, that's you girls. When a man shows interest, you go with him. Do whatever he asks. No drama, no tears, no refusing. The rooms are upstairs, fully stocked with drinks, music, whatever you need to make it easier." She paused at the entrance to the main lounge. "Remember why you started this?" Had they? Kristin couldn't remember anymore. The main lounge was full of them. The Alhajis. The chiefs. The uncles. Men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, some in traditional attire, some in expensive Western suits. They sat on leather couches, drinking aged whiskey, smoking cigars, laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny. And when the girls entered, the conversation stopped. All eyes turned toward them, assessing, appraising and claiming. This was it. This was what they'd been moving toward all along. Not opportunity. Not empowerment. Not even survival. This was a market. And they were the goods. What happens next isn't something Kristin would ever fully remember. The human mind has a merciful way of fragmenting trauma, of turning continuous horror into disconnected snapshots that you can file away in boxes you never open. She remembers being called number 4. She remembers a man old enough to be her grandfather saying, "I'll take that one." She remembers being led upstairs by a hand that gripped too tight. She remembers a bedroom that smelled like expensive cologne and something underneath it, something rotten. She remembers saying no and being laughed at. She remembers someone forcing a drink into her hand and being told it would make things easier. She remembers the room starting to spin, her body feeling disconnected from her mind. She remembers pain. And then, mercifully, terribly, she remembers nothing. Kristin came to consciousness slowly, like surfacing from deep water. Her head throbbed. Her body ached in places she didn't want to think about. She was lying on a bathroom floor, cold tile against her cheek. How long had she been there? Hours? Minutes? Time had become meaningless. She heard voices outside the bathroom door. Male voices, laughing. "Did you see number 7? That one fought back. Stupid girl. As if fighting changes anything. They all fight at first. Then they learn. Or they don't learn, and we dispose of them. Either way, problem solved." More laughter. Kristin's stomach lurched. She crawled to the toilet and vomited, everything inside her trying to reject what had been done, what she'd allowed to be done by coming here. When there was nothing left to throw up, she sat with her back against the wall and truly looked at herself for the first time in weeks. The bone-straight hair was matted with vomit. The expensive gown was torn. The makeup had ruined, leaving streaks down her face like war paint. She looked like exactly what she was, a girl who had sold herself cheap and discovered too late that no price is worth losing yourself. A phone buzzed somewhere. Not hers, they'd taken all the phones. But someone had left a phone in the bathroom. She grabbed it with shaking hands. 3% battery. Enough for one call, maybe. She dialed the only number she'd memorized by heart. The number she'd called every Sunday since she started university. Her mother answered on the second ring. "Hello? Mama." Kristin's voice cracked. "Mama, I need help." What Kristin told her mother in that brief call before the phone died would haunt both of them forever. Not the details, there wasn't time for details. Just enough, "I'm in trouble. I don't know where I am. They took our phones. Please, Mama. Help me." Her mother's voice, frantic, "Who took your phones? Kristin, where are you? What's happening?" And then the phone died. 5 words from her mother cut off mid-sentence. "I'm calling the police right." The bathroom door opened. Bella stood there, her golden dress now looking like a costume for a role in hell. "You found a phone," she said flatly. "That's unfortunate." "I called my mother," Kristin said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. "She's calling the police." Bella laughed, a sound without humor. "The police? Do you know who owns this house? Do you know who these men are? The police commissioner himself is downstairs, currently with number 6. She stepped closer. "Your mother can call whoever she wants. By the time anyone comes here, if they come here, you'll be long gone. And there will be no evidence you were ever here." "What does that mean?" Bella's expression almost looked sad. "Almost. It means you made a choice to create problems. And problems need to be dealt with." She turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I did try to warn you. I told you, no drama, no tears, no refusing. You couldn't just do what you were told for a few hours. You couldn't just take the money and shut up like everyone else." "Like you?" Kristin asked. Bella's mask slipped for just a moment, and Kristin saw beneath it, not the confident recruiter, but a broken girl who'd learned to survive by breaking others. "Yes," Bella said quietly. "Like me. Someone has to be the one who brings in new girls." Might as well get paid for it. She closed the door. Kristin heard a lock click from outside. She was trapped. Here's what was happening outside while Kristin sat locked in a bathroom, contemplating whether she would ever leave that house alive. Kristin's mother had immediately called her father. Her father had called Professor Adeyemi, the only contact they had at the university. Professor Adeyemi had called campus security. Campus security had called, well, that's where it got complicated. Because Bella was right about one thing, these men had power. The kind of power that made police officers hesitate, made investigators suddenly lose evidence, made witnesses develop amnesia. But they hadn't counted on one thing: mothers. When Kristin's mother couldn't get help from the police, she called every mother she knew from her church, from her neighborhood, from her relatives. Within an hour, dozens of mothers were mobilizing, calling their own contacts, their own sons who worked in security, their own daughters who had connections, creating a network of concerned parents that no amount of money or power could easily dismiss. Someone knew someone who worked at a telecommunications company. They traced the last known location of Kristin's phone signal. It wasn't exact, but it narrowed the search. Someone else knew someone who'd done security work at exclusive parties. They recognized the description of the house. They knew where these kinds of parties happened. By 2 a.m., a crowd had gathered outside the gates of the mansion. Not police, at least, not officially. But off-duty officers whose own daughters were university students. Private security guards who'd been paid more by worried mothers than they made in a month. Local youth who'd heard that girls were in danger and decided that money and power had limits. The gates opened not because of warrants or legal authority, but because sometimes, mob justice is the only justice that works. They found Kristin in the bathroom, still locked in. They found Chioma in a bedroom upstairs, unconscious from drugs she hadn't taken willingly. They found Linda, they found on the floor of a different room, bruised and bleeding and so far gone mentally that she didn't recognize them at first. The other girls were scattered throughout the house in various states of distress. Some fled when they heard the commotion. Others couldn't move, paralyzed by trauma. The men, those powerful, untouchable men, they vanished like smoke. Slipped out through the back exits, into waiting cars with drivers who knew routes that avoided cameras and checkpoints. By the time anyone thought to detain them, they were ghosts. No arrests were made that night. Despite everything, despite the evidence of what had happened written on the bodies of 8 young women, no arrests were made. Because this is what it is. Because this is how power works. Because girls like Kristin, Chioma, and Linda had made the mistake of being both poor and female in a city that punishes those combinations ruthlessly. 3 days later, Kristin sat in a hospital bed, her mother beside her. The doctors had treated the physical injuries. Those would heal, mostly. But the other injuries? Those weren't in any medical textbook. Your father wants you to come home, her mother said quietly. He says you should withdraw from university. And do what? Kristin asked. Go back to the village and become what? The girl who tried and failed? The girl everyone whispers about? Her mother's eyes filled with tears. I don't know, my daughter. I just know I almost lost you. We almost lost you. There was a deafening silence in the room. In another hospital room, Chioma lay staring at the ceiling. The STI she'd contracted from Chief Okafor had progressed. The doctor said it was treatable, but the damage to her reproductive system might be permanent. Her mother needed kidney treatment. Chioma had been trying to save her mother and might have destroyed her own chance at motherhood in the process. Linda hadn't spoken since they found her. She sat in her hospital bed, rocking slightly, humming a song no one recognized. The doctors called it dissociation, a coping mechanism for trauma too overwhelming to process. Her family took her home to Calabar, away from the memories. Whether she would ever come back, mentally, emotionally, no one could say. The story spread through campus like wildfire. Not with sympathy, but with judgment. They knew what they were doing. Nobody forced them to do runs. If you lay with dogs, you'll get fleas. The same students who'd envied their bone-straight hair and expensive lifestyle now used them as cautionary tales, as examples of what not to do, as proof that some girls just couldn't handle the game. Bella disappeared. One day she was on campus, the next she was gone. Rumor had it she'd been relocated by the men who run the parties, either paid off to leave or silenced permanently. No one knew for sure. No one wanted to know. The alhajis, the chiefs, the uncles, they moved on to younger girls, fresher faces, new inventory. Within weeks, there were new girls with bone-straight hair posting pictures from VIP sections, making the same mistakes, following the same path, believing they would be the exception. Professor Adeyemi tried to start a campus awareness program about the dangers of Run's culture. The university administration shut it down, saying that it is too controversial. It might affect enrollment and it might make the school look bad. Because the real scandal wasn't that girls were being exploited. The real scandal would be admitting it was happening. December 22nd. The day Kristin was supposed to come home in triumph. She came home anyway. Not in triumph, but in shame, defeat, and a haunting awareness of how close she'd come to not coming home at all. Her younger brother ran to hug her, then stopped when he saw her face. Something in her eyes made him step back. "Sister, are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she lied. The village was decorated for Christmas. Her parents had gone ahead with the party despite everything, though it was smaller now, quieter. Relatives came, but the congratulatory atmosphere had shifted to something that felt more like a funeral. Kristin sat through Christmas dinner feeling like a ghost at her own life. The food tasted like ash. The carols sounded like dirges. The joy everyone tried to perform felt like mockery. Her mother found her later that night, sitting alone in the darkness. "My daughter," her mother said, sitting beside her. "I need you to know something. What happened to you, it wasn't your fault." "I chose it," Kristin said flatly. "Every step of the way, I chose it." "You chose what you thought was survival," her mother corrected. "You chose what was presented to you as an escape told you was the only option. But that doesn't make what they did to you your fault. Those men, they are the ones who should be ashamed, not you." "But they're not ashamed," Kristin said. "They're still out there. Still doing it. And I'm the one who can't sleep, who can't eat, who flinches every time a man looks at me." Her mother wrapped her arms around her. "Then we teach you to sleep again. We will help you eat again. We remind you that you're more than what they did to you, more than the mistakes you made. You're my daughter. You're still here. That means something." Did it? Kristin wondered. Did surviving mean anything if you'd lost yourself in the process? 6 months later. Kristin returned to university for the new semester. Not because she wanted to, but because giving up felt like letting them win. She cut her hair. The bone-straight wig, the hair that had started everything, she burned it in a trash can behind her hostel, watching the synthetic strands melt and curl like dying snakes. She went to therapy through a free campus counseling service that Professor Adeyemi helped her find. Slowly, painfully, she began to piece herself back together. She saw other girls on campus, new girls with fresh bone-straight hair, new girls taking pictures in VIP sections, new girls making the same choices she'd made. She wanted to stop them, to warn them, to shake them and show them her scars. But she'd learned something in those months of recovery: you can't save people who don't want to be saved. You can't warn people who aren't ready to hear warnings. You can only survive your own story and hope that someone, somewhere, learns from it. Chioma withdrew from school. Last Kristin heard, she was back in Enugu, helping her mother with her business, trying to rebuild a life from the ruins of her dreams. Linda never came back. Her family said she was resting, but Kristin knew what that meant. Some fractures don't heal. Some girls don't make it back from the edge. And Detty December? It came again, as it always did. Lagos lit up with parties and promises. Instagram filled with pictures of glamour and excess. New girls made new mistakes, following the same path that had been walked by thousands before them. The city continued its feast. The only question was, who would be the next course? In African folktales, the protagonist learns their lesson and lives happily ever after. The trickster is defeated. The village is saved. Goodness triumphs. But this isn't a folktale. This is the world we live in. This is real life. And in real life, the lesson comes at a cost so high that you wonder if the knowledge was worth the price of learning it. Kristin survived Detty December. But part of her, the innocent part, the hopeful part, the part that believed the world could be kind if you were just pretty enough, smart enough, strategic enough, that part died in a mansion in outskirts of the city. Locked in a bathroom, calling for her mother's help. She carries that death with her every day. Not with shame anymore, but with awareness. She knows now what she didn't know then, that there are no shortcuts to dignity. That money earned by selling pieces of your soul comes with interest you'll be paying for the rest of your life. That the real poverty isn't in your bank account, it's in believing your worth can be calculated in naira and kobo. The bone-straight hair is gone. The expensive clothes are donated. The Instagram posts are deleted. What remains is a girl rebuilding herself one day at a time, learning to live with scars that no one can see but everyone who's walked this path would recognize. This is the true cost of Detty December. Not the money you make or lose, but the person you become in the pursuit of it. Our grandmothers told stories about spirits in the forest who offered travelers riches in exchange for their shadows. The travelers would accept, thinking shadows were worthless, only to discover too late that a person without a shadow cannot fully exist in the light. Kristin, Chioma, and Linda traded their shadows for bone-straight hair and Instagram likes. They traded their shadows for validation from a city that never cared about them. They traded their shadows for money that disappeared as quickly as it came. And now they walk through life slightly translucent, slightly less real, forever marked by the bargain they made with devils who wore agbada and drove Range Rovers. So we end where all good stories end, with a question. When you are asked to trade your shadow for glitter, will you be wise enough to walk away? Or will you, like thousands before you, convince yourself that this time will be different? The choice, as it always has been, is yours. But choose carefully. Because unlike in folktales, in Lagos, there are no second chances. Only survivors and cautionary tales. Which one will you be? If this story touched something in you, if it made you uncomfortable, angry, sad, or reflective, then it did its job. Share this story with every young woman you know who thinks success requires sacrificing dignity. Share it with every young man who needs to understand that participating in this culture makes them part of the problem. Share it with every parent who needs to know what their children might be facing in the city. But most importantly, if you or someone you know is trapped in this life right now, please know, it's not too late to walk away. Contact campus counseling services, talk to trusted mentors, reach out to family. Your life and your dignity are worth more than any amount of money. Comment below, have you witnessed this culture on your campus or around you? How do we create change? What conversations do we need to be having? Like this video if you believe these stories need to be told, even when they're uncomfortable. Subscribe for more real stories about real issues affecting young Africans today, because pretending these problems don't exist only makes them worse. Remember, the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves about why this time will be different, why we're special, why the rules don't apply to us. Don't be the next cautionary tale. Be the one who breaks the cycle. The forest is full of spirits offering bargains. The question is, will you be wise enough to keep walking? Dedicated to every girl who thought she had to sell herself to survive, and to the ones who think they have gone too far to turn back, and most especially the ones didn't survive to tell their story. See you in our next story. Stay blessed, but most importantly, stay alive and stay healthy.